Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. This is AlGhazali AbdulMajed again in GIGAHERTZ Podcast number 2. And today I have a wonderful guest here, the president of the Public Speaking Society at the University of Nottingham and the co-founder of Warriors Within, Iain. Lovely to have you here, Iain.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm very excited to be here and I can't wait to get going.
So, the president of the Public Speaking Society. Yeah, it's amazing and it's one of the best societies, to be honest.
The best.
The best,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that I'm biased. But
Yeah. It has helped me a lot in the past, semester.
Lovely.
And I can't wait for the next semester to start. And
1 week to go.
Yeah.
We're nearly there.
That's
thank
really
you very
great.
much.
That's really great.
Lovely.
So I would like you to tell us more about how to become better at public speaking. This podcast itself is my way of trying to improve myself in public speaking. So I want to hear your thoughts, general thoughts, any other things you want to say, rather than the things that you've told us in these sessions.
You want more information? You want to pay extra for that. The best way to get better at public speaking is to do it. I think is the simplest way. We've had many technical problems, as you can see, but the fact the screen went off again. Maybe it will turn on again.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, best part of public speaking, or the best way to get better at it, is to do it. People constantly go, is there a secret? What do I need to learn? What do I need to do? And I say, you just need to do it. And it is something that I repeat in every single session, especially at the beginning of the year to new people, that you could read every book on public speaking, you could attend every course, you could learn every skill, but if you don't actually do it, you won't get better. It's like learning to ride a bike or learning to walk. You don't see babies reading books if they could read on how to walk. They actually have to try, fall over, keep on walking. So it's very much a case of you have to do it to get better, because we liken public speaking to a muscle in that you have to keep working it and training it. Particularly because so much of public speaking is A, personal, and B, in the mindset. So when we talk about the personal part, you learn basic skills, such as, which I'm not doing right now, sit up straight, stand with your feet shoulder width apart, make eye contact, use your hands, change your voice and tone and pace, or whatever it might be. But people do it in different ways. Some people are very energetic when they talk. Other people are really calm. Some people like to move around a lot. Some people like to stand still. You have to try it out to figure it out. But also in the mindset part of it, you have to start doing it to realize that you can do it. And so that it becomes second nature. Think of it as any time, I do this all the time. You look at someone doing anything in life and you think, I could do that. And then you try it and you're useless and you fail.
Yeah.
You have to do it and keep on doing it to get better at it. Now, some people are naturally more outgoing or confident than others might be, but that doesn't necessarily make you a good communicator. We talk about the fact that the loudest person often has the least to say. And often it's people who talk more with purpose, if you will, that are actually providing something of substance. So when it comes to public speaking, it's not just the fact that you're talking, but it's how you talk. But to be fair, the confidence part at the beginning is mostly built around just doing it over and over and over again in any situation. It could obviously be in a society or a specific place. It could just be talking to people you don't know. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to get better, but it is unfortunately and simply, to be fair, the easiest way to get better.
Okay, yeah, that's terrific. You reminded me when you talked about the energetic person and the calm person, was the idea of archetypes. Are there any archetypes in the public speaking in general, or can we benefit from learning from them and maybe decide, okay, I'm this archetype, I'm not the other one, so I'm going to go with this one and try to explore it more? Or should I explore all of them and try to see which one is the best for me?
I wouldn't. Archetypes might be a bit too specific when it comes to public speaking, because it is a very personal thing. It's how you communicate with other people, and that's contingent on a lot of different factors. It's contingent upon what your temperament is. Again, are you calm, energetic, something like that? Were you raised in a specific manner of talking, for example? You get people who, in England, for example, who are raised in private school. They use more posh tone of voice. You get people who were brought up in rougher areas or in different places with different accents and ways of talking, different colloquialisms and things like that. So there can often be a case of your personal manner of speaking will vary from person to person. But that being said, I think that it's more so a case of universal rules and then how you apply those rules to yourself. So to take a good example of this, if you're looking at body language, for example, there are certain facets that everyone has to not necessarily conform to, but to adopt if you want to be an effective communicator. You have to communicate with your body, adopt a manner that shows you are engaged, that shows you are confident and wanting to be there. If I sat like this everywhere I went, it would imitate the wrong thing. Even though I was really eager, you have to present yourself in a way that other people will read and understand. Because again, public speaking is built upon the basic foundations of how humans communicate. We notice things in a tone of voice. You notice how someone looks, how someone's responding, and then based off how you notice it, it builds an idea in your mind. That idea then dictates how you interact with them. If someone looks less interested in you, then you're going to naturally put in less effort than if someone who seems eager to talk. So there can be different styles of public speaking, but I don't necessarily know if it would be archetypes. Certain people might look up to famous public speakers and their manner of talking, but at the end of the day, you can only learn so much from them. Because if you look at the weather, for example, very strange analogy, but if you look at weathermen and weatherwomen, they all present in roughly the same manner, and you forget they exist. Same with news anchors. You might recognize a face, but you swap it with someone else and you won't notice the difference because it's very rigid, formal, consistent between everyone. The people you remember are the ones who have their own style, and you can tell that it's intimate to them, that they are the ones actually doing it. So the case is less so find an archetype and experiment, so much as it is find how you best communicate. Some people really struggle to be that energetic individual in the room, being loud and dominating the conversation because it just isn't them. And often trying to do that will put you in a worse position than embracing how you naturally communicate. Some people, for example, myself in this, there'll be times when I'm interested, I will talk a lot. Other times, if I'm either tired or not as involved, I will talk less. But it depends on the situation. And often it's better to talk less, but to provide something of substance, and again, be that one person that we all know who never stops talking, usually me, but what they say can often be a bit of gibberish. So yes and no to that question.
Okay, that's really great. I recall you when in one of the sessions you talked about the percentage of the elements of the public speaking. So it's not all about what you say, it's also about how you say it, how your body communicates also as well. So can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, so percentages. I bring this up a lot, and I'm going to preface by saying that I have no clue where these percentages came from, and I have a suspicion that they were made up by someone at some point and then just regurgitated by everyone who does public speaking after the fact. But they are roughly true. So there are three components. It's what you say, your verbal delivery, and then your non-verbal delivery or your body language. And it is 8% what you say, 37% your tone of voice and your verbal communication, and then 55% your body language. So body language is the largest component, and I think the rough sizes are proportional to the amount of impact they say. So to begin with, the 8% is what you say. It shows that what you have to say matters at the end of the day. You could be talking gibberish and you're still talking gibberish no matter how you deliver it, but it isn't as important. So you'll get these cases where you'll have people who chat absolute rubbish, but they're on a podcast, it's a professional setup, they sound confident, they're dressed and you believe them. There's loads and loads of clips going on TikTok, on Instagram, on social media generally, of people just chatting nonsense, but it sounds professional. You see people go up on a stage, they are talking rubbish, but they're wearing a suit, they're fancy, they're well prepared, they deliver it effectively, but they're still talking rubbish. We call those people politicians. But generally speaking, it applies to beyond just politicians. They're just masters of that art. In that yes, what you say matters, and if you want to make genuine impact, you do have to talk about things of substance. But at the end of the day, a conversation with someone consists of hundreds or thousands of words. You leave remembering only a couple moments and a general impression. And it's the impression that matters the most. And the impression is achieved through how you deliver said words. Again, you'll get people who talk rubbish, but everyone believes them, or loads of people believe them. Equally, you'll get individuals who are very smart, have a lot to say, and it's true and genuine. People might not believe them as much because they're not as confident in communicating. So then it brings us to the 37 and the 55. The difference between these two is a bit finicky here or there, but the general gist is essentially that body language matters more than verbal delivery. And that's because at the end of the day, we are visual creatures more than we are audible creatures. We focus more on what we see than what we hear. Obviously, what we hear matters and it plays a role, but again, it's more so on what you see. You see someone before you hear them, and that applies both in the millisecond point that light travels faster than sound, but that's a bit irrelevant. I don't know why I mentioned that. On the general point that you'll see someone walk into a room or walk onto a stage or walking around before you ever talk to them, and how they portray themselves visually matters far more than what they actually end up saying and how they talk about it. And a good example of this is if you're ever walking around and you see someone, and just based off that visual impression, you create an opinion of them. You might think they look really mean or uninterested, they don't look nice. You get to talking to them, they're actually a lovely individual. But that initial impression was formed, that entire interpretation of someone based solely on what they look like. And that's why the public speaking body language element is the largest part, because how you portray yourself matters before what you say and how you say it. So they're still important. Your verbal delivery and your non-verbal delivery and what you say all come together to be three components of yourself and your presentation. But the verbal side will remain less important. And why that is specifically in the numbers are all a bit confusing and sciencey, and I don't understand it all. But the core point is essentially you have to master how you present yourself before you master the next component, which is your verbal delivery. They still matter essentially just as much to yourself and to others, but that visual first impression matters so much more than anything that comes afterwards, and far more than a lot of people would often realize. So making a good first impression, which of course comes through how you present yourself, is the most important component. And that's why, for some reason at least, it's got 55%.
Wow, that's really interesting, Iain, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I remember that once I heard this, I can't remember where I heard it, but it's, they say people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. How does this apply in public speaking, and how can we leverage this to our benefit? And to the audience benefit as well?
I guess it comes down to the overarching goal of public speaking, if you will, which is impact. Because there's thousands or many components to public speaking. There's the structure of your speech, the message of your speech, your use of statistics, how you apply those, how you engage your audience, your verbal communication, your non-verbal communication, the way you dress, the room you're in, your setting you're in. There's a lot. It takes us a whole academic year to teach it, and we don't go into a lot of detail because there's so much to it. But each and every part of that is working towards the final goal. And the goal is, what do you want your audience to take away from this speech? Is it you want them to be more informed about a specific topic? Is it you want them to care more about that specific topic? Do you want them to believe you, to believe in you, to follow you, to take a course of action just to listen to you because they're there to learn? It can be a multitude of different things, but each one of them still requires an ultimate impact. And the impact, I guess, is the conclusion of that statement. It's not what you say, but how you made them feel. And that's because, again, you say loads of different things, but they won't remember all of it. They can't. Even if you're only speaking for 5 minutes, you could have upwards of 500 words within a written component of that speech. People aren't going to remember all 500 words, barely any of the individual details, particularly the words we use all the time. If you say, I am, 50 times in a speech, no one's going to notice. But they will remember how you made them feel. If you are funny, and they remember that you were a funny individual, they remember that positively. If they remember that you sounded intelligent and what you had to say was coherent and made sense, that applies the same. If they think, wow, this person really cared about it, maybe I should care about it too, there's that component of impact in it again. So it's a case of how you make them feel. And it isn't a case that they have to walking away crying because it was such a sad and moving speech, or dancing on the spot, they're so happy and excited, or they've laughed so much that their stomach now hurts. It isn't a case of that extreme. It's a case of you want to show that you care and for them to remember. Public speaking is a difficult one because it applies mostly in specifics. Yeah, you talk about generalities of they want to feel something, but what they feel is very contingent upon the goal of your speech, who you are as an individual, and the audience that's around you. If it's children compared to professional adults, very different types of speech. It's then a case of focusing ultimately, what do I want out of this interaction? If I'm there for an interview, I want to leave with them thinking that I'd be a good candidate because I've shown I know what I'm on about and I've shown that I want to be there. If I'm leaving after an interaction with the cashier at a supermarket, it could just be, I want to say hello. And I leave with that person thinking that I'm a nice individual I can say hello to again in the future. There's many different types of interaction. What they feel is the end point. And I guess it comes down to specifically pre-made speeches or interviews or anything where you are prepared and you are able to do some pre-planning. You have to think, what do I want to get out of this? And then apply everything you know towards that one goal and ultimately keep it focused so that you don't end up jabbering on about random things and also potentially sending the wrong message compared to what you wanted to.
Wow, that's really interesting. And also you said that public speaking has maybe some benefits when going for an interview.
100%.
Yeah. So can you tell us more about that? Yeah. If I want to go maybe go for different interviews and see how am I going to present myself, and also how to sell myself to the audience, utilizing all these public speaking skills, how to use my body in an interview session in a small room, maybe just something like this. How can I benefit from all these things?
Okay, yeah, definitely. Public speaking is a very important component of interviews and just everything generally, any sort of interaction. And it's a case of, we've had technical problems all day with this screen, so I apologise for that. But yeah, so with interviews, there's many different components of it. If you ask people who aren't necessarily believers in public speaking, they would argue that it isn't as important as other factors. I would disagree, and I would say public speaking is one of the most fundamental components of an interview. And I guess that's because there's two components to interviews. There is, there is obviously what you're saying. What you're saying is very important. It's arguably more important than how you say it, because they'll be looking for certain buzzwords and points in an interview. You need to show you are capable and skilled enough and motivated enough or whatever to be employed in this job. But ultimately still, there is that question of how do you then deliver it? And again, it could be a case of two people are equally as qualified, but if one person is able to communicate more that they're qualified and show better, connect more with the interviewers, show their passion and desire to work there more, they are more likely to get the job. And that's because there is always a human component, not just in interviews, but in any area. Yes, they're looking for technical skills and they're looking for specifics, but presumably if you get to go away. Presumably, if you get to the interview stage, or at least later interview stages, you're qualified enough. If you've gone through assessment centres and tests and your CV, you probably have the skills they're already looking for. They want to find who fits best in the team. And that's where the public speaking can really help sell you above other people. That's because most individuals have subpar communication skills. Particularly in certain fields, they often struggle to communicate effectively. If you're able to do that better than other people, it puts you in good standing. And of course, it's not some magic pill. But if you're good at public speaking, you're not going to walk into every single job. Some people just won't like you. There'll be other people they potentially like more. There are so many factors outside of your control. The value in public speaking lies in, I guess, helping show your benefits and prioritizing the things you can control most. So, for example, if you can engage more with an interviewer at a personal level that puts you in good standing. You don't have to have half an hour small talk asking about their kids and their life story beforehand, but simple things such as when they ask, how are you? If you just go, I'm fine, thanks, or I'm good, I've been better, whatever that generic response is, if you go, I'm good, thank you, how are you? And then you're able to engage in a small amount of rapport to begin with, it helps build a better connection with individuals. And what that means is in those individual cases where they're trying to decide between you and another person, that small point might bring your standing more positively compared to theirs. And it applies in many areas. And I guess it links back to this point of how you made them feel. If you walk out of the interview with them thinking, wow, that person knew what they were on about, they were motivated, they showed that they cared, they looked like a capable person, it aids you. It can never harm you. It can never detract from it. And that's why I'd argue that public speaking in interviews is really important. And again, there are basic skills that apply everywhere. Make sure you're seated, your hands are above the table, you're not fiddling with anything, you're making eye contact, you're not talking too quickly or really slowly, you're not being monotone in your voice and being incredibly boring. But it's the side of public speaking that we forget about, which is the more personal side. That's where you can really exploit in interviews. And this is where I have disagreement with other people. A lot of people will say that at interviews, you almost need to put on an act. You need to be the person that they are looking for. If you know this firm is very professional and rigid and rejects human emotion, then you need to be the robot who goes in. If you're looking for a firm that's very creative and energetic, you need to be that individual. And I think there is a case for it. Yes, you want to show what they're looking for. If they're an extremely formal firm, you don't want to walk in high-fiving everyone. A handshake will do the job far more effectively. But at the same time, I would wager that if you're having to almost put on an act to be successful somewhere, do you necessarily belong there? And of course, some people will say, yes, I will put on an act and I will do what I need to get to where I want to go. From my point of view, that isn't how I would like to live my life, so I wouldn't agree with that. There will be differences in that interpretation. But the fundamental elements apply both ways. If you're putting on an act, you still need to do it effectively if it's to be successful. And so, yeah, public speaking is very, very important when it comes to interviews, because what you have to say matters. But everyone there at that interview has things that they can say. They have that one thing that might set them apart, the experience, the motivation, the knowledge of the company, whatever it might be. How you then take it a little higher and stand out just above one or two other people is in superior communication skills and the ability to deliver it effectively.
Amazing, yeah. And I think the interview itself, it's some sort of a conversation between you and the interviewer.
Definitely, yeah.
And this reminded me also, in everyday life, we have conversations with lots of people, friends, family, strangers, and everyone. So we tend to do well when we are conversing with those people. But when we are at spot and we want to deliver some sort of speech or a presentation in the university or anywhere, so it tends to be more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And are the skills in public speaking and the skills in the conversation the same? Or can we say that public speaking is also some sort of a conversation between the speaker and the audience? And how can we leverage that into making a better conversation with the public, just like as if we are doing it with someone, like an ordinary conversation?
Interesting question. Yeah, so I keep saying this, but it will depend on who you ask. Some people interpret public speaking as the formal art of giving speeches, going up on a stage, preparing a speech and delivering it to an audience at an event. Or you might think of TEDx, for example. TED-style talks are probably the most common visualization of what public speaking is. I would contest that and take it to a more general idea, in that when we talk about public speaking, it just implies conversation with more than just yourself. And I guess you might argue that there is private speaking, but at that point, it's just talking to yourself. Public speaking, from my point of view, is any interaction with other people. Particularly, it applies to interactions where it isn't just small talk, I guess. If you're just chilling with your friends and talking, or you're at the pub or something like that, maybe less so. You can be a bit more relaxed about it, so it might apply in the more formal conditions and settings. But Generally speaking, I don't think there is much distinction between communication and public speaking. And if you look at the university side, for example, there are many different types of public speaking society, and they take many names. I know there are public speaking societies, there are communication societies, there are Toastmaster societies, there are TEDx societies. Ultimately, though, at the crux of it, they do the same thing. They teach people how to communicate effectively. It is in the name, we say verbal and non-verbal communication. And that is the core component of it. It's how you communicate with others. And both of them maintain that primary focus on the other person as well as yourself. For example, if you are talking into a camera for a YouTube video, that probably doesn't apply as public speaking. You are able to edit it, make cuts, prepare yourself, be overly energetic and hyped than you would be in a normal conversation. A podcast setting, for example, would be more of a traditional public speaking communication setting because you are directly talking not to a screen, but with another person who will respond to how you react differently to how someone will watching you on a tablet or a phone or a laptop or whatever. So there is definitely crossover. I'd say if you're looking for specific distinctions between the two, public speaking involves an element of preparation more than traditional conversation and communication would. But a lot of the value in public speaking lies in how you can translate skills in pre-prepared speeches to areas where you aren't necessarily prepared. And as a good example, we do something in public speaking called off the cuff, where essentially a random topic or picture or question or whatever will appear on the screen. And you have quite literally no time to prepare. You have no idea what's coming. On the spot, you have to deliver a speech. And that has two benefits. Number one, it helps with your ability to think on the spot. That's something that good communicators have. It isn't just that they're able to present themselves well. They are also able to think of logical arguments, coherent arguments, and they don't get lost on the spot. And that is a skill that anyone can learn. But also, it comes back to what I said right at the beginning of public speaking is like a muscle that you train. You want it to be instinctive. Take a tennis player, for example. They're able to hit the ball very accurately on the court. You gave them a racket in the middle of the street and threw a ball at them, they'd still be able to respond well. You take a footballer off the football pitch, and again, in the street, give them a football, they're still going to be really good with it. You give a professional basketball player a ball and a hoop in the middle of nowhere, they're still going to be able to get most of the shots in. Same with public speaking. You take them out of the pre-prepared setting, out of the stage and the formal attire and what the events or whatever it might be, and put them on the spot, they should still be able to communicate effectively. And that's where those universal rules apply again. Your body language, your keeping your tone of voice interesting, showing that you care, making eye contact, but also the personal side of that and how you communicate. Because when it is an act, if you aren't prepared on the spot, you will lose it very quickly. A very, very good example of this is in, I've forgotten her name. She's the woman, the blood tests, the fake blood tests in America. Have you heard of this scandal?
No.
I can't remember her name or what it's called. I've completely lost it now, but I'm sure it will come back to me later, annoyingly. But there's this woman who, she's been sent to prison because she made some blood tests. Basically, she was presenting herself as a fraudulent technological genius. And she put on a really deep voice, particularly for a woman, and extremely much deeper than my voice and probably yours as well. She had that voice all the time, but there are certain clips of her when she's just in team meetings and she gets caught on the spot and she talks in her natural tone of voice and it isn't as deep, which shows that it's fake and it's on the spot. Sometimes if it's an act, you'll lose it. And the problem with something such as an act is you have to maintain it all the time. If you're a horrendous human being and you're putting on the act that you're really nice, one single outburst could ruin the act. But if you are genuinely nice, you can't ruin that, if that makes sense. In the same way with public speaking, if you're actually comfortable communicating, you have your style, you know what you do, even in situations where you're caught on the spot, you're still able to employ, even if to a lesser degree, effective capacity to communicate. And it sounds very technical and transactional when I describe it like that, but it comes down ultimately to the fact that you aren't boring to listen to and people actually want to hear you talk. So there are distinctions between conversations, communication generally, and public speaking, but there is also a lot of crossover in that the general principles between the two will always apply no matter what setting you are in.
That's really fascinating. You reminded me with that guy. His name is Antonio Vinciali. Yeah, he delivered an improv TED talk, and he was given the topic, and he was given the first picture, and all of the next pictures he wasn't aware of what he's going to get, and it was just like a complete improv TED talk, and he was talking about statistics and the intimacy and the secrets of intimacy and importance and lots of stuff. And each time he says something, another thing appears on the screen, which is completely different from what he was talking about. But somehow, because he's highly skilled at doing improv and just going off the cuff and talk about and how to make such a convincing idea from the image or the thing that appears in the screen. It's really an interesting skill to be developed. And once the person develops this skill of speaking just off the cuff, it sounds like he or she, like they're speaking in even it's an improv, it's like already prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you feel like that person is really expert in what he's doing. So Iain, talking about public speaking and how to develop these skills, also it has something to do with making habits and breaking bad habits. Because when we talk, or the way we talk throughout the past years, we had already formed all these habits of speaking, the way we communicate with people. So how to break these habits and start to add new habits when we speak, like try to be more expressive, try to use body language in a way that's more effective and as meaningful. So how can we leverage this and try to break the bad habits and learn new habits? And how can we start doing this and apply it in public speaking?
How to apply habits? Good question. Habits are an interesting one because habits are the terminal point, I guess. Actually, no. Let me phrase that. They're just before lifestyle. Lifestyle is, I guess, the overarching holistic way that you live, but the habits conform to that lifestyle. Habits can be picked up very quickly, but also lost just as quickly. You could get in the habit of waking up early. The next day, you could start waking up early, and you could wake up early every day for 2 years. Then you have one late lie-in, start waking up late. Suddenly, you're waking up late for the next year. So habits are very temperamental, but what they require is consistent effort, and that's where the word discipline is used quite a lot. And I think discipline it's overused, in my opinion. Every internet guru who sells a course online will talk about discipline, how to build discipline, how to maintain discipline, the importance of discipline. And yes, it is very important, but it's one component of a much wider facet of things. Obviously, you need, as Petra would say, motivation to start doing it. You need the discipline to do it. You also need a goal that you're working towards to keep you motivated. You need a method to make sure that you aren't just using brute willpower to get through, because that will never last forever. So,
and also you need to feel good while doing it.
Exactly, yes. There's lots of different things within it. I think to boil it down and simplify it as best as possible, the most important thing you need for habits is a desire. And it isn't motivation. Motivation isn't the desire to do something. Motivation is very short term and it's very emotionally based. It's, I feel unhappy with how I look, so I'm going to hit the gym. 2 weeks later, it's easy to just stay inside and eat Domino's, for example, and get takeaways because it tastes nicer. And you might be motivated, but then you need the discipline to keep going. But then you say, well, the discipline, it's hard to be disciplined at times, particularly when you have to be disciplined in so many things, and it can lead to sacrifices in other areas. If you want to be disciplined in how you eat and drink, for example, only eating healthy food, you are limited in what you can eat. If you go to a restaurant that doesn't have what you want, you might have to make a sacrifice there. If you never go out, maybe your friends do, and suddenly you can't go out with them. There's lots of sacrifices that are made when it comes to discipline, and obviously goals, you have to pick and choose what goals you want to focus on. And all of these areas can be gained, but also lost. But I think they all boil down to that lower level of what is it that you want internally? What is your goal, as I guess your identity of yourself, because most people have everyone has cognitive dissonance, which is essentially a difference between what you think and what you do. And that applies because we create visions and stories about who we are and what we are. But obviously, because stories are easy to create in our head and you could do anything in your mind, they don't often line up with the reality of what you do. Everyone would love to be confident, outgoing, fit and healthy, successful, so many different things, but we can't always do all of it, and B, for most people, do most of it. So when it comes to building habits, the goal is to first build up that vision of yourself, because you have to have the vision and idea that you tell yourself if you then are to do the next component of it. And as a good example of this, I would say myself in the habit of going to the gym. So I used to be really fat. I weighed 135 kilograms, which is 290, 300 pounds. It's very, very heavy. Yeah, really heavy. I never did any exercise. I would stay inside all day, eat loads of food. And I was unhappy about it. And I had the vision of I want to be healthy and strong and fit, and I want to start doing it. But it took me years of trying to create that vision before I got started. And yes, it required me to take the first step and then to be disciplined and continue doing it, to go to the gym, to eat healthy. But what ultimately created the habit and the lifestyle of it was that deeper meaning behind it. It was a case of, I don't want to be like this. I know I can be better, so I will be better. And now that I've got to that stage, it's a case of, this is who I am, and I'm not going to stop doing it. There'll be times if I'm too busy, or I just want to rest, or I get a pizza because I just want a pizza. There'll be times here or there, and I'm not a perfectly disciplined person, make many mistakes, but the point is that you keep on going. And I think that's the problem with discipline in itself, is that discipline is often viewed as a straight line. You do the same thing every day and you fail once and you're done for. That's not how it goes. Discipline is that ability to keep on going even when you fail, to keep on trying, because ultimately that's how you get anywhere in life. You're never going to get there in a perfectly straight line. Often you have to forge your own path, and some might even go further and say you need to create your own destinations. One interesting analogy to life I heard is that we're all just boats adrift in the ocean. And yes, you need to build your own sails and you need to create your ship and guide it to where you're going. But often you might just land on an empty island, and then you need to build that island into what you want, in that you have to find what you want and actually go after it. So habits are a difficult one. And I guess I've tried to differentiate my answer in a way, because people will give you many different ways of going about it. And sure, there are certain universals. You need to have the end goal, the desire to do it, the reason why you're doing it, the way you do it, the motivation to get started, the discipline to keep doing it, the goal at the end to have that discipline working towards. But the habit to begin with and at the end exists almost above this timeline, if you will. It has to be the core identity of you as an individual, because you're never going to stick with something forever if it isn't a part of who you are. A great example of this would be children who are raised in a religious household but aren't necessarily religious themselves. They don't feel it intrinsically within them. Their parents might make them go to church every Sunday all the way until they're 18, and then out of habit, they keep doing it. But it isn't their core identity. Maybe they have a problem with Christianity, or maybe they want to conform to a different religion entirely. That comes down to a core identity. It's deeper than just a habit, and that habit that you've had your whole life could just be broken like that. There are lots of things we create habits out of unintentionally, many other things we create intentionally. But at the end of the day, all your habits contribute to you. We are the sum of all of our actions, no matter how big or how small. And so the habit component of it is just another part of your identity as an individual. So it's a journey. You have to go and discover who you are, what you want to be, and then every day, as best you can, you have to keep doing it. Sometimes you'll fail, sometimes it'll be really difficult, sometimes it will be really easy, but the point is you'll keep going in the vague general direction. You never get there, because obviously life's a journey that has no end unless you count death, but you never get there, essentially. You've just got to keep on trying to. but it isn't, as Captain Jack Sparrow said in Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, it's not the destination so much as the journey. So it is a case of keep on going, keep on trying, find your own way. Obviously, there are many components and guides and ways to get habits and build habits. It will be intrinsic to you and the type of habits you want to build. But any habit, no matter what it is, requires the reason to do it. And the reason to do it requires the identity within that reason.
Wow, this is really interesting. Also, you brought up lots of interesting topics about religion and building habits and identity and all this stuff, because all of it essentially it's who you are, in essence. So how do you keep yourself motivated even when you don't feel like you don't want to go to the gym today? How do you push yourself? How do you apply this discipline? Because discipline is just sometimes I feel it's like a cliche word. Even it's right, we have to do it. And there is lots of theories and different people now talk about you have to feel good. And there is a book by Ali Abdul, it's really interesting. It's called Feel Good Productivity. And he talks about the secret of productivity is not discipline, it's feeling good. If you feel good with the things that you're doing, then chances that you're going to sustain this action are really high. So some people say discipline, some people say feeling good and be motivated all the time and try to find joy in what you're doing. So I want to hear your thoughts about this.
Well, you put me on the spot today. I'm glad I had that Red Bull to get my brain going. But no, interesting one. Okay, well, I'm going to start by disagreeing with Ali Abdul in that you have to feel good. Mm-hmm. And I'm also going to disagree with the people who argue that discipline must be applied at all times, because both of them are missing what discipline is, at least in my opinion. Discipline is an abstract. It doesn't exist as a thing, You are disciplined, not because you have discipline, but because you do the same thing every day. Discipline is contingent upon action, but also it is employed through thought and feeling. So the case of you have to feel good in everything, that is a very temperamental way, and in my opinion, almost a dangerous way to view things, because sometimes and oftentimes in life, we have to do things that we don't want to do, but we have to do it. For example, I hate doing laundry. I hate it. I can't explain why. I just despise it. Yeah. I will never find joy in it. I will never look at it and go, wow, I'm doing my laundry today. I'm going to have clean clothes. I hate it. But I have to do it if I want my clothes to not be dirty, smelly, and stained. I still hate it, but I have to do it.
Fair enough.
And that case of finding joy in everything you do it's good on paper, but in practice it often fails, because if you are able to find joy in things you do, yes, that's great. For example, I really enjoy going to the gym. It helps me a lot when I want to go. For me in the morning, it's not I've got to get up and go to the gym. It's I can't wait to get up and go to the gym. Yeah. But something like laundry, I don't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And it varies from person to person.
Even laundry, it's easier than going to the gym. Yeah.
Not for me.
Really?
I would genuinely rather do squats for an hour than fold my clothes. Wow. It makes me physically tired. Wow. It's one of those weird things I can't explain, but it...
Yeah.
But no. But yeah, so with the finding joy in everything, it's great if you can find joy in it. The problem is, if you then stop finding joy in it, you're very likely to stop doing it. Let's say that the job you really enjoy doing, you have your dream job. Yeah, you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That's complete bullcrap, because there are days you won't enjoy it. And if you think you're meant to enjoy it and you're not enjoying it, and you think, I'm not enjoying it, it's not for me, I'm going to quit now because I'm not enjoying it. Again, it could be the case that to the other extreme, it's almost true as well. You don't have to put yourself through hell to do things you want and have things that you want. But at the same time, if we look at pleasure or pain, they shouldn't be the motivators nor the discipline for why you're doing something. If you find joy in things, yes, that can be great. And obviously do things that you enjoy. But so many things in life we do because we have to do them. You have to get a job because you have to make money, because otherwise you can't eat. You won't have housing and clothes, and you won't be able to enjoy anything in life. Many things in life. If you're struggling with money, for example, or doing your laundry, keeping yourself clean and healthy, you won't always enjoy everything, but you don't always have to enjoy them. Life, or hedonism is the pursuit of pleasure. Life, I don't believe, is necessarily the pursuit of pleasure, because life isn't always good. In the same way, though, life isn't always bad. Some people argue life's horrendous and you've got to fight your way through, and I disagree with both of them. Life has no, in my opinion at least, I'm religious, but I'm going to ignore that component for now. Life, in terms of emotional state, has no intrinsic anything. We just exist in that realm. As a human mind, we exist in a void, and we have to make meaning of things. And that's where it brings me back to my belief that it's how we interpret, how we build, how we view things that keeps us motivated. Motivation will get you going, but it will also keep you going. Motivation is almost, think of it as the fuel that starts the fire, but sometimes you need to keep the fire going. If it's windy or the fire sometimes gets put out, you've got to keep lighting it. Or a combustion engine keeps itself sustaining with flame, but the flame is still there constantly, whether you see it or not. Motivation is extrinsic and intrinsic, in that external things, a goal, a desire, you want to look a certain way, have a certain thing, it will motivate you, but also intrinsically, so will the internal desire for what you want. And it keeps coming, from my point of view, back to that, what goal do you have for yourself? And this is where I take beef with a lot of self-help books and gurus and guides, because it's so overly simplified. And you say discipline's a cliche. Self-help is a cliche nowadays, because everyone has the answer. Their answer is the answer. It's the objective truth. But not everyone can have the objective truth. That's not what objective is. And yes, everyone believes that their truth is objective, but there's no discernible way to necessarily prove it or disprove it. So what your truth is matters more than the truth, essentially. So when it comes to staying motivated, I have my ways of doing it. Other people will have their ways of doing it. If you're asking specifically about myself, I think at times it is a case of, again, it comes back to that internal belief, but also for me, my overarching goal in life, my one big thing is that, assuming I live this long and nothing bad happens, on my deathbed, if someone were to say to me, what would you go back and do differently? My answer is to say nothing. I want to say, yes, I've had my ups and downs through life, I've made mistakes, but when I get to that end point, I can say I've done my darn best, and I can move on knowing that I've achieved what I want to achieve, I've lived the life I want to live. What that specifically looks like will always vary from person to person. One person will want financial, monetary success, maybe because they grew up poor, and that's what they believe. Helping their family is the big goal. Other people just want internal success because maybe their family said they were never good enough, and therefore they have to prove to themselves that they are. Other people are believers in a higher cause, be it religion or charity, or you want to be part of something bigger. That's what guides you. It varies from person to person, and it's an answer people don't like to hear. And the reason that you never see it on social media, to say that there is no one answer, because everyone wants a quick fix. Right now, what can I do that would change my life? And yes, again, there are actions you can take and mindsets you can employ and techniques you can use that will help you. Something with discipline, for example, setting routine. It's very useful. I always go to the gym first thing in the morning, where possible. If I haven't got lectures on the weekend, I get up, I have my breakfast, I stretch, and then I go to the gym. And I do it every day, same time. And that way, I know what I'm doing. It's part of my daily routine. I just do it. I don't think about it. It's almost unconscious in a way. But at the same time, if I'm at the gym, sometimes I'm tired or I'm just not focused, my mind's on something else, and I'm not doing as well as I'd like to be doing. Moments like that, I have to be honest enough with myself to take a step back and say, right, I need to put a bit of effort in here. And that applies in other areas of life. Sometimes if you're sticking to a diet, and there'll be lapses in a diet, if you're trying to lose weight, for example, but there might be too many lapses and you're not losing weight. You have to be honest enough with yourself to turn around and say, this isn't going well, I need to change. And that's where it links to the most important mindset value I believe in. Two, actually, I'll come back to the other one later. But for this one, it's open-mindedness. You have to be willing to look at yourself in the mirror and accept what isn't going well. The problem is people lie to themselves because we have our ego, and our ego wants us to be perfect and never admit fault. That can be useful at times, but generally speaking, that ego will also keep you trapped where you are now. And it also links into the second mindset part, which is a growth mindset. There are two types of mindset here. You have your limiting belief and your growth mindset. Limiting belief is a terminal mindset. It's essentially I can't do this and I'll never be able to. The growth mindset is, I can't do this yet. And obviously, there are some things you'll never be able to do. No matter how hard I try, I will never be a professional footballer. I am not good enough at coordination and flexibility and all of these facets that make a good footballer. I'll never be that good. I will never be a professional long-distance runner because my skeletal frame is, I'm quite literally big boned. I'm also a bit fat, but I'm going to say I'm big boned. But other areas, for example, lifting heavy metal circles, I'm good at that kind of stuff. Or doing public speaking is something I enjoy and I found value in. Different people will be good at different things. Exactly. And you have to be willing to accept what you are good and aren't good at and find the things within that you want to focus on. And I guess all of this ultimately comes back to the internal belief, the story you tell yourself, but then also how you apply it. And to simplify this, but to still keep it general, there are two parts of life, the things you can control and the things you can't control. You need to make peace with what you can't control, and you need to, find what you can control and direct that in a course that will take you to where you want to go. So, and again, I guess I'm mentioning many, many different points here, but to keep it focused, it all comes back again to what you want. What you want, you have to figure that out, you have to find it out, you have to create your core identity, and then you have to keep on applying it. That's what keeps me going. Again, I talked about on my deathbed, I want to say, this is what I've achieved. I did my best. Yeah, I've made mistakes and I failed, but I've done as well as I can. So every time I feel like I'm not doing well enough, I will keep on trying. And it's a work in progress. There are many things in life that I'm still working on. One of them, for example, is indulgence with food. I'm a massive foodie and I love to eat and I like nice tasting food. And sometimes if I'm on a diet, for example, trying to lose weight, I need to say, well, I can't do this right now. I need to stop. I'll still often fail and get a takeaway because I want it. It's a case of, I've done that. That's not going to stop me. I'm going to keep on trying. And eventually, it's never clean, but I do get across the finish line more times than not. So when it comes to motivating myself, I'd say the motivation part is less important. It's the internal story value part, what my core identity, that is what motivates me more than anything else to keep on going, to keep on trying.
Fantastic. I couldn't agree more. There is lots of fancy words, discipline, feeling good, productivity, whatever. And the point is, you just have to explore your inner self and find out. And that's what I do most of the time, because when I read something and try to apply it for days, weeks, and it doesn't work, and I know this is just one size and it doesn't fit me. And all these terminologies and all these great ideas that we find in self-help books, self-development book, whatever, most of them, they are just different sizes and they don't fit all of us. So the whole idea is just exploration and try to find out what's the best for me. And that's how I do it with sometimes I found this in psychology, they call it metacognition, which is thinking about your thoughts and how you think about things and how you perceive the world around you. And how also you perceive the world inside your brain. When you think about what are you thinking about now? Okay, I'm thinking now I'm in a podcast with Iain. I'm enjoying it. We're having meaningful conversation. We're trying to help people. We try to help anyone to figure out themselves. And this is what I'm thinking about now. So when I think about this thought itself and follow each thought that comes to my mind and try to filter all of them and take the good thoughts and throw away the bad ones. That's really helpful and it helps me to understand myself much more better.
Thank you.
Yeah. When people hear discipline, sometimes they hear also the word pain, and they have to do something painful. Mm-hmm. And there is no gain without pain, and all these cliches. Yeah. I want to know more about how you do with pain in the gym or pain in life in general.
Pain. No pain, no gain. It's an excellent movie, by the way. Yeah. It's a movie called No Pain, No Gain. Complete tangent by Michael Bay. Yeah, The Rock, the movie character, movie actor The Rock, he fries a dead person on a frying pan. That's all I'm going to say about the movie. It's a real life. It's based on a real life story. It's a good movie. Yeah. It's very, very strange. If you're interested, do check it out. But yeah,
it was Mark Wahlberg, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Mark Wahlberg.
Yes, Mark Wahlberg. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he kills someone and has to get a bicep pump to get over the stress. Yeah. It's a very strange but good film.
Yeah.
But pain generally, pain is it's an interesting one in life, and I think pain is almost incompatible with modern society. And what I mean by that is the modern world is doing everything it can, for better or for worse, to try and diminish pain. And there are the good components of that, and there are the bad. So the good things such as healthcare. Finding a cure for cancer is one of the most positive things humanity is endeavoring to do. Curing diseases, I don't think you can argue there's necessarily a downside. Yes, maybe if it's done through unethical practices and there are questions on genetic engineering or whatever, but the general pursuit of better healthcare and preventing child mortality and cancer and Alzheimer's, dementia, any disease that causes problems for people, that removing of pain is a good thing. But other areas of life, trying to remove all of the pain can be problematic, and it can often lead to more pain. And I think this is where we come into almost social commentary. And so I'm going to try and steer clear of some of the more controversial parts of it and keep it focused, but I will have to delve into it to answer the question effectively. So it starts with ultimately, what is pain? So I'm going to ask you, what do you think pain is?
Yeah, pain is, I think it's a defense mechanism from the body. Your body tells you there is something wrong and you have to do something to stop it and to protect yourself.
That's true. At the biological level, pain is defense.
Yeah.
Of course, no, pain is defense. Pain is causing problems to keep yourself alive. For example, it's painful to be lonely because back when we were hunter-gatherers, people by themselves would not last nearly as long as those in a tribe, because obviously you can share things, you can hunt more effectively. So you need to be within the social group in order to stay alive. For example, it hurts to not have a spouse because then you won't produce genetic offspring, which is something that our biological drivers want us to do, for example. So there's certainly a value in pain there, but there's also a value in pain in terms of the human element of it. And what sets humans apart from other animals is our ability to think abstractively and our consciousness in that regard, and that we create an identity. A dog isn't almost aware of its existence. Obviously, it loves its family and likes stuff, but it doesn't think, I want to be a working dog. I want to be this. I want to be that. Yeah. That's something humans have that other animals don't. And it puts us in a unique position when we then confront the biological nature of pain, in that we resist it. Particularly in so many areas of life where we can avoid pain. You can avoid pain by not jumping into fire, so we don't jump into fire. You don't if you can avoid it, stab yourself with a knife because it hurts and you don't want to get hurt. You don't jump in front of a car if you don't want to break your leg, because I like being able to walk and I try and avoid that wherever possible. But in other areas of life, that pain can then be problematic. Let's take, for example, if I'm going to use an example of someone, because I use this with myself, someone who is very overweight. There are two pains in that. There's the pain of being overweight, and that comes both in the physical pain of less mobility, but also in the social stigma of that you are outcasted, you're identified as viewed as lesser by many people. And then that conflicts with the pain of having to change, because it's comfortable and it's nice and it's pleasurable to relax, not do any work, eat nice food and just chill all day. But that can often produce more pain. And I think that's where we interpret pain, and the interpretation and the story we tell ourselves of pain is very, very important. For a lot of people, it's easier to distance themselves from that pain, from the accountability, because accountability is painful. We say the first step to overcoming anything is acceptance. You have to be honest and accept the truth of what is happening. That's painful. People will try and resist that, and it's almost a superficial, superfluous pain, and it's very temperamental. It only applies when we think about it. Yeah, if it's painful to say you're obese, that's painful to think about for a lot of people. But it's a lot easier to say, no, I'm biologically like this. It's just some people are naturally larger than others. And while that's true, no one's naturally obese. You go back hundreds of years ago when people didn't have enough food, no one was naturally fat. Yeah, I think that's a miscarriage of scientific facts by a lot of people. Yes, some individuals will retain weight more than others. And in a society where food is quite high calorie in terms of calorie levels, it's far more difficult for them to lose weight. I don't deny that fact. Some people are bigger bone than others. They have different body dimensions or mental health conditions, eating disorders, whatever it might be. But beyond specific outliers that are there as exceptions to prove the norm, for most people who are overweight, they stay that way because it's easier to try and distance it and conform to these ideologies, whether it might be that it's actually healthy to be overweight. Or I saw one person trying to make the case that they should have obese people in bodybuilding competitions because they've built their body through eating a lot of food. I thought it was quite strange. You might disagree, but on this point, it's painful to accept that truth, and therefore it's easier to deny it. The problem is, though, you've avoided that pain, but then you have the pain of knowing that you've avoided it. And often I found this, people get larger because pain's a comfort mechanism for me. I would be sad, so I would eat. And then I would get fat, so I'd be sad. So I'd eat more food, and I was in this continuous cycle. And honestly, yeah, you kept getting worse. It's not like I got to a certain weight and stayed there. I was slowly but surely gaining more and more. And that's how people get from slightly large. I was nothing massive, but from slightly overweight to full on, I'm bedridden and I can't walk and I'm in a mobility scooter all day. So it's the level of pain that people will often avoid. They avoid that superficial pain of that first one they feel, and then they ignore all the others because it's easier to ignore that pain of I'm not where I want to be, and I can mask it through escapism and keep on doing that, and you get trapped in that cycle, and it's easy to do that. And we view pain as bad, and therefore we avoid it. But at the same time, often pain, I liken pain to the one overly honest friend that you have. Think of pain as that one person who will tell you the truth when nobody else does. In the moment, you hate to hear it, but in the long run, you're glad they told it to you. They told you to get your act together, and you're glad you did because it helped. And that's where pain can be good. But again, it comes back to this general point that pain is neither good nor bad. It's not intrinsically good. Lots of people argue you need to constantly be uncomfortable and in pain if you're to succeed anything in life. I disagree with that mindset. Yes, often getting uncomfortable will help you grow as a person, but if you're constantly climbing for the top and you're never satisfied, you will never be satisfied. There is no end. Yeah, it's toxic. And the reason, for example, that billionaires are constantly in pursuit of more. They want to be the first person into space and have the biggest business and the biggest house. And ordinary people look at them and go, aren't they just satisfied that they have more money than any normal person will ever see in their lifetime? And to them, no, because the frame of reference constantly changes and they're not happy. They aren't fulfilled, so they're constantly seeking more. And if they have financial success, but they're alone, they have no real friends and they're unhealthy, it's easier to constantly chase the financial success and avoid that pain over there and say, no, I'm rich and successful, I don't need you. All these horrendous rich people you see online that go, I've got a bigger car than you, so nothing else matters. You look at Andrew Tate, the criticism, he just goes, where's your Bugatti? And you think, is the life you're living actually one that's good, or have you just convinced yourself it is to avoid a harsher truth? And there are many people, again, who are less successful, materially speaking, but they're happier and more fulfilled internally. And again, that comes down to what you want and where you view yourself in life. But generally speaking, pain does have its value. Pain, I think I've tried to show here, it can be bad, but it also can be good. And ultimately, you have to make the choice and the honest truth and choice of what pain am I willing to tolerate and what do I want to see out of it? Because as you say, pain is there to tell you something. Sometimes it isn't always true. You might feel FOMO, fear of missing out, the idea that you have to constantly be doing everything and doing more and achieving more. Yeah. And if I'm not in pain, I'm not happy. And as you said, that's a toxic way to view pain. But other people will run from pain wherever possible, they'll escape it as much as they can because it's easy. It's easy to do that. It's easy to avoid the pain, whereas often the pain is necessary. And again, I'll come back to public speaking. And of course, I'm biased from the topic, but I think everyone in life should learn public speaking. Those who do are inherently at an advantage compared to those who don't. And something like university. Societies and universities, or universities that have a public speaking society, students of that university are inherently at a massive advantage. They have free access to essentially unlimited public speaking training. Adults pay thousands of pounds to get workshops and experts in. Universities have it for our society, for example, for £5 for a year, you can get fundamental training by people who do it for free because they want to do it, because they enjoy it and they want to give back. At least for myself, for example.
Some of them started a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so many people go, no, it's not for me. I'm too afraid. I don't want to do it. And I guess it upsets me in a way, not emotionally speaking, but in a logical and a perplexed state. Because from my point of view, I go, you don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. You're the exact person who should be doing it. Yeah. If you're scared of public speaking, you're the kind of person that should come to the society. Yeah. The person who's really confident might not learn that much. Yeah, they might have fun in it, but they won't ultimately learn a life-changing skill. All the people who are too nervous to are the ones who exactly should be there, particularly nowadays with lockdowns and how much is online. And many people are losing the ability to talk with one another. I've met so many people at university who just can't talk. And I feel like sometimes the ability to communicate effectively makes you stand out. But in an ideal world, it shouldn't do. The ability not to communicate should be the outlier because everyone should be able to talk. We are social creatures. But it's painful to stand up on a stage and put yourself through the fear and the risk of judgment and all of that. So again, it's easy to say, not for me, I'm not going to do it, I'm going to avoid that pain. But then when it comes down the line, when you're at an interview and you're scared and you might not get the job that you're qualified for because you couldn't communicate effectively, maybe then that pain is worse. Maybe the pain and the fear of taking a risk is far less than the pain of regret of not doing it. I always say I'm going to try something out because I'd rather do it and regret doing it than regret not doing it, because at least I know at the end of the day. Yeah. So pain is an interesting one, and it has good and bad qualities. Certain types of pain are objectively bad. Certain types of pain might be objectively for your benefit. The pain of getting burned is objectively good because it stops you getting into fire that can burn your skin and harm you, for example. So it has its good and its bad, but the problem is so many people nowadays interpret it purely as bad. And when you do that, you miss all of the positive, or at least unintentional benefits that pain can bring. You might not see it in the moment, but pain does have benefits to it. And it sounds almost contradictory, as an oxymoron, the value of pain, but there is a genuine value of it. It's just people nowadays, it's an abstract. It doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It's how we interpret it. It's the release of chemicals in your brain that makes you feel something. And then how your mind interprets those chemicals that can impact how those chemicals react with you in the future. And it comes back again to the story we tell ourselves about pain. And it's important for people, if you're not doing this, particularly to start doing it. It takes time, but to get there in the long run, to start assessing pain and saying, is it always bad? Because there will be instances and circumstances where that pain is important and it could very well save your life. And I look at myself, for example, the pain of the social stigma of being the overweight outlier, and the pain of embarrassment about not being able to run, or I couldn't climb out the swimming pool, I couldn't do the warm-up in rugby because I wasn't fit enough. And yeah, it hurt in the moment, but looking back, I could say it quite literally saved my life, because I went from a point where I would have literal chest pain from running to now where I don't do enough cardio, and I definitely need to do more of it, but where I'm a physically able person, and I'm far less likely, for example, to die of a heart attack in the next 10 years than someone who is overweight and will die young because they weren't able or willing or whatever it might be to actually look at themselves in the mirror and say, I need to change. And that pain is almost the first step in helping you change. And that's why I say it's the friend that in the moment you don't like, but you're always glad they're by your side. Sometimes they're too honest and they say too much and you have to push them away, but other times you need them by your side because no one else will be there when they are.
Interesting and painful topic.
It can be the painful truth.
Yeah, painful truth. Yeah, definitely. I remember last week I was running and it was pretty cold. It was, I think, 2 or 3 degrees. And I was running, it's about 12 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. And my chest was just pounding and pounding. And I couldn't breathe. I was just trying to push myself and try to endure the pain and try to see how much more can I endure. And I tried my best, but I gave up on 20 minutes. Yeah.
Well, I think in that point, the fact you did it is the most important part there, isn't it? So.
Yeah. And the good thing is in the next week, which is this week, I tried to go for more minutes and try to see how much can I do. And luckily, I did 25 minutes, and I see that running with time. So pain sometimes can drive you to go and push more and try to explore yourself and try to see how much more you can do. Speaking of pain, and it reminds me with the warrior's mindset. Warriors within.
Amazing, Tan.
Yeah.
Very smooth.
So how do you manage pain? How do you... And what's in general in Warriors Within, and how can you help people, especially young generation and people in uni?
Warriors Within, amazing tangent. Yeah. So, firstly, I'm not in the marketing department. That's just Petri's job.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess it's an interesting one because beyond the name brings out many connotations. We chose the name because it's an alliteration, WWE. It sounds quite nice, and it links to the value, I guess, of when you look at a warrior, and the image you often have of a warrior is that someone who doesn't back down, they keep on going. And that can apply in so many areas, because when you look at a warrior specifically, we often visualize a soldier, someone who's brilliant at wielding a sword and fights off hordes of enemies and saves the world and is a hero. But warriors can exist in many facets of life. You can have warriors in terms of a warrior mindset, of someone who just doesn't back down, they keep on going for what they want. You could apply the term warrior to, let's say, a doctor who is constantly trying and doing their best and going out there even when it's difficult. Maybe they lost a patient, but they're not giving up. They're going to help other people. They're going to keep on trying. You could have a warrior in terms of someone who's working for a charity. They're going out there, they're pushing for donations, they're doing their best to help other people. Warriors can exist in so many areas, but that general contingent of they are pushing for something more is where the crux of Warrior Within lies, or Warriors Within. It's here or there, but the ultimate name remains. So, yeah, it's an interesting venture between myself and two of my friends from Public Speaking Society, Petru, who is a previous guest, and Mohammed Musa, who I'm sure will end up on this at some point. Yeah. So, hello, Mr. Mohammed, at some point in the future, if you make it on here. But the goal for us was to help young men, predominantly, because obviously we are men, so it's just easier for us to help men. But of the goal at a small level, I'm not going to sit here and say we're going to change the world and help other people. It starts with the individual, small, yeah. 1 or 2 people here or there, and it's a case of helping reverse what we see as harmful trends that society, particularly Western culture and society, can be drifting towards. And one of them is this rejection of pain. And I've already touched on this quite a lot, so I won't go over it again. But it's that general point of pain is important at times, and you can't always run from it. You have to be honest and willing to face it. Sometimes doing that alone can be too much for people. And that's where we come in. Take something like public speaking. Most people will pay for a coach or someone who's done public speaking before because it's a bit nicer when you hear it from someone who's been there, who has a story, who can demonstrate the skills in it. It's more reassuring than some guy on a YouTube video who claims to be an expert but can't back it up with anything. And that's where we want to be, essentially, particularly in the public speaking area. I guess that's my area predominantly of expertise here, and it applies to the society that we're in that I can use the skills that I have learned from this to help other people with it. And when it comes to Warriors Within, the goal of the business, generally speaking, is to do two things. There is a financial element of it. There is a gap in the market for this, and we have the opportunity to exploit that. And I do like money. I want to be able to buy food and car and pay rent and everything, which applies. And it's also the value of I'm not a structured person. I don't think I would always do so well in a 9-to-5 job, consistently doing the same repetitive tasks, because it's not how I operate. I get bursts of energy and I need the downtime. And something like that where I work in my own hours, I can often put more work in, but do it in a way that benefits me, and I can produce more quality output in. But on the other side of it, there is also the social venture side of it, in that it's helping to build the general term healthy masculinity. And I use the word healthy very explicitly here, in bold underlined capitals, because the word masculinity is a very controversial word to use nowadays, because it's often been associated with many negative connotations, which we can term as toxic masculinity. The continued thousands of years where women were viewed as lesser because men are men and we're better. That's an element of toxic masculinity, and it comes from that innate biological drive for men to be more assertive and to try and be in control, and that alpha male mentality, which can lend itself to other things. That can lend to the maltreatment of other people. You put them down because you're better, the rejection of basic honor and integrity, and treating people with respect because you're better than them and you're more powerful. That's all that matters. I've got a nicer car and bigger muscles than you, therefore I can tell you what to do, and it doesn't matter. And many other areas like that, this constant chase for the top, where people will go through unethical business practices to make more money, and they'll exploit people because they want to have more and do more and be more, but they don't do it in a way that's conducive to other people. And it's an interesting one, because the way I view it is that alpha males and this toxic masculinity is an inherently individual thing. It's a focus on you. You've got to be better. You've got to dominate others, beat others, assert yourself against others. It's all about you, but the individual is then applied in a social setting. The very meaning of alpha male requires there to be a social structure. To be the top person, there must be individuals underneath you. And so it's almost a contradiction in its own interpretation to say that it's an individual focus that's inherently contingent upon a social structure, whereas what we seek to cultivate almost flips that round. There isn't an individual focus, of course, but it's your role of a man within society generally, and that requires a middle ground between the toxic masculinity and the lack of masculinity. In that a lot of people nowadays, well, I say a lot of people, individuals nowadays, here or there, will reject masculinity as being bad in certain areas. That the idea of there being a strong man who is able to be assertive and take charge is viewed as inherently bad. And yet, at times, men might not be the best person to lead. You often find female CEOs statistically do better than men because they are more willing to cooperate and work with other people, and they have less belief in their own inherent betterness. But at the same time, you find that in times of crisis, you often find that dominant individual is relied upon. You need someone like Winston Churchill, who is just a force of nature in a war where it's quite literally live or die, to be willing to take difficult choices and drive it through. There is so many areas that it's so black and white that to simply say masculinity is this or bad or good or whatever it is very much destructive and counterproductive. And so this is what we're trying to solve in a way. And I think it comes down to two elements. It comes down to the practical side of it in terms of teaching essential skills for life. So being able to communicate effectively, how to build habits effectively, how to cultivate a growth mindset, how to be able to introspect and find what kind of character you are. We have 3 core pillars in that. We have mental mastery, physical fortitude, and charisma and communication. Charisma and communication is all about the person you project to the outside, how you communicate, all the public speaking things we've mentioned previously, but also charisma in terms of your character. What kind of person are you? What do you want to be? And then how do you find that, cultivate that, and be the best version of yourself? But then there's also the mental mastery side, which is the internal element. It's how do you fight your inner demons, if you will, and become the master of your own will in terms of your mind. Because obviously you have so many voices in your head, but only one of them is the conscious you. Your subconscious is a part of you, and it's a very important part, but it's a part that shouldn't always control you. And so the mental mastery part, it comes down to things like habit formation. How do you build habits? How do you develop that mindset? How do you create a person internally that can be built upon later? It's almost a foundational piece. And then the last area is the physical fortitude part. It's are you a healthy, strong individual? And again, it doesn't have to be this traditional alpha male viewpoint of you've got to be the biggest, most steroided up man with a buzz cut and tattoos and you look hard. It's nothing like that. It's a case of just being a healthy individual. What you want in terms of health will vary. I enjoy being strong. It's what I'm built for it. I enjoy it. It's what makes me feel good, and it's a healthy endeavor. I don't enjoy running. You, for example, you do. So you will go for runs, and that's what you value. And again, different people value different things. Physical capabilities will vary. Some people will lift incredibly strong weights. Other people will be able to do amazing calisthenic movements and hold themselves up in weird positions and do thousands of pull-ups. Other people will be able to run for miles on end. Other people will be able to run a short distance very quickly, or throw a ball or a javelin really far, or jump a long way into a pit of sand and do loads of things, or just be incredibly flexible and healthy generally. And again, there's so many different ways you can go about it, but there's still that general point of it needs to be present in some manner, in whatever form that takes. And so those 3 pillars and guiding people through that is where we want to be. We have collectively between the 3 of us, a lot of skills. We've delved into all the stuff, obviously public speaking wise. You've got the training officer, the president, and probably the best public speaker we had last year. So we have that capability. I mean, I would say, I don't want to use the word expert because it's thrown around a lot, but by the qualifications of expert in public speaking, I can say I'm an expert. I've been in the society for 4 years. I've done a qualification. I've won awards at national competitions. It's also my job, quite literally, both in Warriors Within and as my other job as a public speaking coach. So I have that facet, but we also have collectively, we share that general mindset of wanting to achieve, in that what achievement is and success will vary person to person, and we even have different interpretations of it, but we're all the kind of individual who's willing to push ourselves and grow. And that's where the 3 of us can come together. But it also links into this wider general point of trying to cultivate this idea of healthy masculinity. And it's a dangerous topic to delve into, because so many people, they hear the word masculine, you will immediately be associated with red pill and the likes of Andrew Tate and the moron that is Sneeko. You know who Sneeko is?
No.
There's so many individuals who are just very toxic and harmful. You look at someone like Andrew Tate, for example. He grew to prominence in a large part because some of the things he had to say did have merit. A lot of men feel trapped and rejected by society nowadays. You have many TV shows and news and mainstream media arguing that a lot of the traditional interpretations of masculinity are wrong and bad and harmful and need to be stopped. And then you have men who naturally conform to them going, do I not fit into this society? Where is my place in a world that seems to hate me and reject me? For example, gym culture has been massively on the rise at the moment with the likes of people like Sam Sulek, if you know who he is, or a guy called Noel Diesel, David Goggins. Loads of individuals who've achieved that physical prowess and have shown that it can be done in a good way. It can be an outlet for your mental health. It's a positive hobby to do. It's a good way to meet people, build good habits, build your discipline, help strengthen your mind and be able to do more hard things in life. There are many positives to it. Obviously, there's the darker side to it, but the positives are what have made so many people get into it, because it's a positive thing they can do that links into a basic biology. Men, biologically speaking, males in almost every species, particularly with Homo sapiens and other similar relatives like chimpanzees and apes and other sorts, they are naturally more assertive, more dominant, more likely to believe in themselves. And that, again, it's not inherently good nor bad. It can take good positive forms. You can have people who are leaders, who are proactive, they listen to other people, they guide them. And yes, they are the one at the top, but they are still able to bring others up with them. But at the same time, you have others who climb to the top by pushing other people down. So you had the positive and the negative, and for a very long time, it was all viewed as positive. It was this manliness and competition that has striven for so long in human history. The violence and the pursuit of power and fickle things, essentially, have been harmful to our course in a lot of times. But nowadays, it's rightly been pushed back against. But as anything in life, we've gone from one extreme to the other. It's gone from all this masculinity is great to a lot of people adopting the mindset that masculinity is really bad. A great example of this is if you look at Disney at the moment. A lot of their movies, if you look at Marvel, for example, a lot of their movies, beyond the fact they're just a bit rubbish nowadays, they've been replacing systematically male superheroes with female ones. Yeah. And the general pursuit of having more women in any area is a notable and good course to go after. But the manner in which they've done it has pushed a lot of people away, especially considering the vast majority of Marvel fans are men. The way that they've elevated female superheroes is by making them inherently better than the male versions. They are smarter, more capable, they go through less trial, and they also push down the male version. They bring out all the negative things about them and why they're worse than a woman. And that's an unnatural way to go about it. These people haven't earned their place, they've just been granted it, and the writer said, you're good. And people look at that and go, they're not, just because you say they are doesn't mean I think they are good. And it's a good example of how many narratives in society nowadays have tried to crush the idea of masculinity because they are afraid of the harm it has caused. The pursuit of aggression and competition can be very detrimental. But what we want to do is find the middle ground where we can bring out the best part, but also temper the worst part. And that's where we want to be focusing on, generally speaking. And it's not the kind of pitch what I'm giving now that we'd give to most people. We don't pitch it as a masculinity database where you can learn all the essential skills. It's a place where we teach you how to learn life skills, because ultimately that's what they are. A lot of what we teach also applies to women. I'm not saying that it's only contingent on men. Public speaking, being able to be physically capable, being able to have control of your mind. These are things that apply to every individual, but obviously from our frame of reference as men, we're able to teach that in a manner. And it comes back to ultimately this general question. I think that the key takeaway from what I want all of this podcast to be is that life is what you want it to be. On our Meet the Committee post on Instagram, we all put a quote in, our favourite quote. And the quote I put in is, life is what you see, or something of that nature. Life is how we interpret it individually. What you want is different from what someone else wants. It's different from what somebody else wants. We all want different things in life, but the general universal traits we all share, we need to have those to then find what we want, because we might know what we want, but we can't get there without certain components being present. And we're there almost as middlemen to help guide you in the right direction. So it's a long-term goal. Yeah. I say that right now.
It's nice to pursue.
It's a good one, yeah. There are lots of ways we can go about it. We have online guides, we want to do courses, in-person groups and meetups and online coaching, and many different ways of going about it and find what ways work. Some people will want different ways. Some people might just want to read. Other people might want to get more involved. That's up to them. But it's that general pursuit of trying to teach people the skills that a lot of individuals are losing now, and remind them that this limiting belief mindset, this I'm stuck, it's a lie. It's a falsification of the truth. Anyone can be anything. Everyone will not be everything they want to be, but anyone can do it. I think that's the distinction. Not everyone will do it, but anyone can do it. And the people who do it are the ones who are willing to take the hard steps and do hard things and give it a go. Not everyone will succeed, but you have to give it a go. And what we're doing is trying to reorient people and give them the tools to then go and build the life that they want, whatever that might be.
And that's really helpful. And sometimes people need to have just a small push from someone else to keep them going.
Yeah, again, the comfort of someone else telling it to you can make a massive difference.
Yeah.
If you read on a piece of paper that everyone's afraid of public speaking, you think, okay, and if you have a person tell you how they were afraid and how the skills that they learned mean they're no longer afraid, that has far more weight to it. We are humans, we connect with other people. So us being there, having gone through so much of it, having actually learned and applied what we're teaching, we're not just there to sell a course. We would never do a course on how to make an Instagram marketing company because we don't know what we're doing in regards to that. But if we make things on areas we are actually capable of doing, it A, means that we're actually doing a genuine good, and B, helps people understand where we're coming from and see the value in what we are offering.
I can't really wait to see warriors within, from this small company to such big one with massive impact.
Thank you.
Around the world. Yeah,
that's the goal.
And I know for sure it will be. I know for sure.
Thank you. Well, we'll give it our best shot. And we'll see what comes.
You have my full support in this.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So we've touched upon lots of different topics, and all of them are really interesting. And as a final messages or a final recap, so would like to hear more. Just a few last words.
Okay. Well, I've said many different things. Too much to recap in a quick summary. So I guess to summarize, generally speaking, what I've tried to say today, I guess, is twofold. Number one, at least from my point of view, the life that you want is what you have to do. Everything, most things in life are subjective. There is no one answer. There is no one definitive best and only way of doing anything. Don't trust everything you see online just because someone presents it in a professional manner. You have to take all this information, take everything you're told, everything you learn, and apply it to yourself. Something like public speaking, take all the skills and then apply it to how you like to communicate, your style, your way of doing things. It's not necessarily the easiest truth to hear, and it's not as marketable as having the one answer, but it is the most true way if I have got a truth in any sense in that regard. So find the life you want to have, basically, is one key point. The next is that limiting belief mindsets are really bad, basically. Growth mindset is what you want to have. You won't be able to do everything in life, but you should be able to do anything in life. So just because you're bad at something doesn't mean you'll always be bad at it. Just because it's not for you doesn't mean it won't always be for you. Equally, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you'll always enjoy it and always be good at it. It's a constant journey of you giving it your best shot. Life isn't perfect. There's no perfect way to live it. As seen by even something as simple as getting your laptop screen to work. It can be problematic, but you have to make do with what you've got. Give it your best shot. You can plan, but there's so much in life you can't control. Our goal and our objective is to maximize what we can control and to execute it in the most beneficial way possible.
That's really helpful for everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I just keep going and using the growth mindset. It really can have big difference throughout the journey.
Definitely giving it your best shot.
And also remember that if your life is just a flat line, it means you're dead.
Genuinely,
in general.
It has ups and downs.
Ups and downs, exactly.
Ups and downs, but the general trajectory, as best as possible, should be up. And when life, puts you down, try to get up. You have to get up. I'll put it that way. You say when life beats you down, get back up. You have no. If you don't get up, you're on the floor. You're done for. So you have to get up. It might take you a long time to get up. The count to 10 might have already passed, but you still have to get up. If a boxer gets knocked out, they're not going to lie on that ring forever. They're going to go. Maybe they retire, they move on, they find something different, or they go, they train harder, and they come back again. Up to you what you want to do. And I guess with all of this, everything I've said is my opinion. You could disagree as much as you want, and I'm happy to talk to anyone. If you see this in public speaking group chat and you think I've said something horrific, message me and I'll happily debate you on it. I like to talk. But also, I guess, what I've tried to do here is almost in a weird way, say that there are no answers while providing an answer. And the way I've gone about it is by saying that the answer, unfortunately, is there is no one answer. The answer is, here's a general bunch of rubbish, you've got to build something with it. Yeah. Everyone has the same building blocks. Some people might know how to build something nicer, but what you build will depend upon the person. The goal is to keep on going. Find what you want to do and actually want to do and relentlessly pursue it. Just at the end of the day, go after it non-stop. Even if you fall down, even if you fail, keep going after it. It might change, it might turn into something else as you go through life, but that general goal of living the life you want to live is the most important tip to living a good life. How to live a good life is it has to be one that you think is a good life. Because if you don't think it's a good life, you won't enjoy it and you'll never be fulfilled.
Yeah. Let's hope for a better life.
Yeah, that's all we can do. We are little collections of atoms floating through a rock in space. In the grand scheme of the universe, you mean nothing, but in some ways that can be liberating in that no one knows what's going on. We're all giving it our best shot. So embrace it. You'll fail. Don't take it too seriously. People who take it too seriously are never truly happy. But also, don't take it so unseriously that one day you look back and you regret not having done more.
Yeah. Sometimes we can find out inside ourselves.
Yeah. Often the answers will come in the most unexpected of places. Yeah. But you won't know if you don't try.
Exactly.
And I guess I'm gonna finish with a quote. You can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. You will never achieve and have whatever you want if you don't try for it. It will never just fall into your lap. Yeah.
A great life was this quote.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Iain.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for your time and sharing all these helpful insights.
Thank you.
I'm really sure it will resonate with someone.
I hope so. Honestly, I say this with public speaking.
Many people.
Even if what I do in that society only helps one or two people, it's a net good at the end of the day, because the skills you learn somewhere like that are things you will carry for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Same today. Maybe one of the messages I've said to someone out there, will resonate with you and help you, not necessarily push you on the path, but help guide you in those little repeated steps towards being on the right path. So, I'm happy to do this, and it was an honor to have me. Yeah. Despite many technical difficulties, being in a very warm room, it's very warm for January as well, we've made do, and I think we've produced something that hopefully a couple of people will, at one or two points, maybe not on every point, but hear and go, yeah, I agree with that. So,
thank you so much. We enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.